evening. Today we're going to do something a little different, and while I'm normally making stuff or building stuff I see on this channel, we're actually going to be cooking this time, which is, it's not unusual for me to cook, but if you ask my family, it's like a national phenomenon. You know they exist, you just have a hard time proving it, and that's me and cooking. I don't really cook very often, but I do cook. I mostly eat out or I microwave something. But yeah, today we're doing a Tex-Mex stew by John Wayne. And then we're also going to do a Victorian dessert, which I think is going to be interesting because it's coffee cooked with eggs. I know it sounds weird, but we'll get to that, but one thing at a time. And we're going to start with dinner, which is the stew. Alright, everything you see in front of you is what they recommend for the stew. According to the cookbook that I have in my hand at the moment, you want 2 pounds beef stew meat cut into 1 inch or 1.5 inch cubes. You're going to salt and pepper to your taste. Then you're going to use a tablespoon of black olive, mama. Dork. Then you're going to use a cup of chunky chili, 1 can 15-ounce black beans undrained, and then you're going to do 1 pound of baby golden potatoes. So let's start with our meat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, starting with my meat, the direction says salt the beef. Already messed up. Salt and pepper your beef. Then 2, heat oil in a large stock pot or Dutch oven over a medium high until hot. Add the beef and brown on all sides. So once that's done, we'll move on to step 3. Alright, so while my beef is cooking, I figured I'd show you some of the things I've done before I had a YouTube channel. This was one of my first blacksmithing projects. It was a piece of rebar, as you can see. And I was really proud of it because, like I said, it was my first. You can see the hammer marks in it still. I had it polished and sharpened. I leather wrapped the handle, and that's all I did. I should have done more. And then I went to work. And where I work, I'm a machinist, so there's welders, grinders, and all the fun stuff that I need. And had this welded. And then I found out that it's illegal because of this. So this is a project I'm going to have to destroy later, unfortunately. My second project was another knife. This one I did right, kind of. You can see there's a bolts through the handle. Still rebar. And the blade's slightly crooked. And this was actually a result of me not understanding the whole heat treatment behind it. So it got too hot, I quenched it, and then it bent. But this one I kind of did right. And before I was... one more. This is actually a jewelry piece. This here at one point was your normal bolt. And then I got it hot, smashed it into shape. Took it to work, sanded the rest of it into shape, and then I polished it, had it bead blasted, and now it's a little more near pendant. In high school, I would make paper rings or bracelets. Here's one of them, and it's not really complex, or at least it wasn't for me. It was 3 paper clips where I pinched the bottom using a pair of pliers, and then just kind of laced them over and just continued that way until they eventually stacked up. I did the same thing for my bracelets, except I've learned to get a little more creative. See, this one's a snake, kind of. And then after that, I learned if I took the pliers while I was bending them and while they were stable enough to actually hold their own shape, I can make a noticeable weave. Another one of my paperclip rings is I took the same method with another strand and I just did it completely through instead of bending it around. And I kind of made this like flower-like thing. And that was my beginning with metal work. And then I actually did some paintings and some wood carvings, and I'll show you those now. As you see here are some of my paintings, and some of them you can see actually have stories, and these stories were actual things that happened to me that I spun into like a medieval poem. And then you can see there's a plague mask there. That is actually a paper mache. That was one of my first mask projects I did. It was crafting foam, safety glasses, and then, of course, paper. This piece here was actually scrap in a metal bin that I turned into like an antler-like crown or tiara, I guess is the word you would use. And then you can see there's this one that is just done by pencil. And as we go down into this story, you can see there's paint on this one plus some marker. This is actually another story of mine. One of the first things I really drew was this rose coming out of the water, and the idea was, is it still a rose even though, as you can see, all its colors washed away? Except for its reflection, where you can still see what it once looked like. And this one was just different shades of painting. There was no outlining, there was no additional drawing. This was different shades of paint that I turned into a piece of art. This one actually came to me while I was at the bar one time. I was just sipping wine and this popped in my head, and it seemed like a good thing to paint at the time. And then you're already familiar with the the paper rose here. And that takes care of the painting aspect of what I do. So now is onto the wood carving. This here's my altar with my several different gods. Now before you question that, that is not a swastika. That's actually a rune. It's I can't pronounce Old Norse very well, but it's called Jinfaxi, and it's a rune associated with courage and combat. That's why it's on a shield. And then you have Thor, a Valkyrie, Freya, Frigg, Tyr, and then of course Odin himself. So made a little wooden boat. It's got a rudder, a little anchor, and that's wood carving for me. And then you saw of course, the letter opener. But yeah, this is what I can do when I actually have time to devote to my craft. And there's a sewing project I actually did that I want to show you. All right, this here is a cloak. I made it out of denim jeans. The hood is actually an old shirt. And then there's this weave here. It's called a Byzantine or bird cage, which I bought, I think it was $18 worth of copper wire, and I just stripped it and braided it. This is that gauge steel I used in my other chainmail video. I believe this is called a plumb bob. Yeah, this was also just at one point a bolt, which, as you can see, I fixed up. And then I also made this a cloak pin and ring. I also did the tree, but the tree I cheated. I plasma cut it out. And then I took a stamp and an engraver, and I did the little leaves, and then the bark. You can't really see it very well. But yeah, this was what I did pre-YouTube. And one of my friends convinced me that I should show these things on YouTube, and that's why I have a channel, so everyone can see what I do. Alright, as you can see, our beef is fairly brown. Now it says to add the beans and the liquid salsa and beef broth, bring to a boil over a pan, reduce heat and simmer, cook for 2 hours. Add the potatoes and simmer for another 30 to 45 minutes until the potatoes and beef are tender. So, our liquids are 1 tablespoon olive oil, which I do believe I have. Yes, I do. It doesn't state virgin olive oil, but that's what I would assume. 1, 2, alright, now we're going to add in beans, the liquid. I don't have an electric can opener, so we're going to do this by hand. It said 15 ounces undrained And I believe this can is just a little more than that. Yes, it's actually half that. So I'm going to add half a can of beans. Now that's half a can of beans. Then it says to add salsa. It says 1 cup chunky salsa. I grab my measuring spoons. Alright, so 1 cup salsa. And then 1 cup of beef broth. I got Swanson, and that's just because of what they had available. Same thing, I don't have a can opener. So I'm going to open that and pour that in. Alright, so that's our broth, salsa, beans, meat. It says to let cook for 2 hours. Or reduce heat to a simmer. Let this cook for 2 hours. And then, no wait, I jumped. Bring to a boil, cover pan, and then reduce heat. Alright, so we're going to bring this up to a boil. And then when we're done there, we're going to add 1 pound of baby gold potatoes. And because a boiled pot boils when you're not looking at it. Alright, this recipe calls for 6 eggs and then 4 cups of coffee. So we're going. It says make a nice strong coffee, add 4 cups to 6 egg yolks. So which means you're not going to add the whole egg, you just want the yolk. But because the Victorian era is not the same as ours, their cups could have been different sizes. And the video I watched, the guy converted, it was 1 egg yolk to 2 ounces of coffee. And I believe there's 8 fluid ounces in a cup. So 2 times 6 is 12. So we're going to have about 1.5 cups of coffee for our 6 eggs. Now, as weird as this sounds, you're going to want to whisk your eggs, add your coffee, but you don't want your coffee to be boiling hot. In fact, you want your coffee to be, I guess, warm would be the word. So I'm going to crack my eggs, get those going. And then it says to use a mold in the shape of eggs or fruit or birds or wherever you have laying around. And then bake for, I believe it was 30 minutes, so half an hour. When my yolk's busted, gotta save it. And according to the gentleman, it tastes like a coffee pudding. So, we're going to give this a shot, see how it works. There's no cream added, there's no milk added. It is just eggs and coffee. But I would butter your mold, because that's what the gentleman did, so the eggs don't stick. And as for the egg yolk, throw it out, boil it. I don't have a good one for that right now. But let's just start with mixing our eggs and coffee. So I don't actually have a whisk, but I'm going to use a fork because, you know, if it was good for Mama, it's good for me. It also says you want to sugar this, but it says sugar to your discrepancy. So if I imagine if you didn't like sugar, you wouldn't add it. I like 2 spoons of sugar to 1 cup of coffee. So because this is a 12 ounces of coffee, a cup and a half, I'm going to add 3 spoons of sugar to it. And it says a strong coffee, but the idea of strong coffee depends on who you are. My family, they use the 4th cup to measure out coffee, and it's a level scoop. And I use a heaping 1/4 scoop, and they think that's too strong. So, I want like half a cup. I figured that's a nice strong coffee for me. But because I'm not going to cook all of it, I still have to drink it. There we go. Our eggs are whisked. Now we just wait for the coffee to get finished. I'm going to check on my stew. Alright, we're starting the boil. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my molds, which are just these here. It doesn't say to, but I'm going to butter them so my eggs don't stick. Alright, so personal note, I probably should have used a bigger bowl, but added my coffee, add my sugar, that should be enough. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to mix it. And then once I feel the sugar is dissolved, I'm going to pour it into the molds. You want these molds? Yeah. So on a modern oven, the gentleman said you want a 300 degrees. I think he said 25 minutes, but I don't know. I have to rewatch that and get the timing correct. But you don't want to stick it in too long that it burns. But don't fill your molds up all the way either, because it's egg. It will tend to grow. So, I'm telling you right now, it doesn't look very good. It's like really it smells kind of like Insta coffee, but this is not something I'd eat right now. And the consistency is a little weird, but he said that's normal. He said it should be more solid when it's done. Alright, so I'm going to preheat the oven to 300. I'm going to pour these into molds, because right now dinner is done. So, because I'm actually worried about pouring it everywhere, and I feel like that'd be a very disturbing mess, I'm just going to take a measuring cup and scoop it out in theory. Just... So this seems to be working. It smells pretty good. Still have a while before the oven reaches temperature. So once I get this all set up, I'm gonna eat my food. Then I'm gonna bake this. He said it's more of a dessert, so you would serve this on a bed of mint, not spinach. And I'm really hoping it turns out well. That's all I can say. I mean, he said it was good, and he doesn't normally like coffee, which is funny because I don't like eggs, and I wanted to try this. Well, wish me the best. Alright, so here's our Tex-Mex soup. See, we've got our potatoes, which those will stay hot the longest. Here's our salsa and beans. And here's our meat. That's really good. Wow. So the Tex-Mex stew came out really good. Now we're just waiting for the oven to get ready, and then we're gonna try the desserts. Alright, so it says to bake at 300 for about half an hour. Again, keep your eyes on it because it will grow. So I'm going to pop these in the oven. We're going to wait a half hour and see what goes on. Alright, so it's been 30 minutes. This is what they look like. So let's try to pop them out. Gross. So now all of them popped out. I don't think I buttered the things very well. Looks kind of like cooked beef blood, if we're being honest. Oh, no time like the present, correct? That's actually not bad. As you can see by the coffee, it didn't really cook all the way either. So the next batch, once I get this cleaned out, I'm going to try again for a little bit longer. But yeah, it doesn't taste bad. Okay, so the eggs and coffee one, that was interesting. Like I said, it's not bad. It looks really weird, but I don't think, maybe I had the coffee to egg ratio wrong. It's very possible. That I got from Johnston, flavoring the savors of the 18th century. I believe that's correct. You know, I'll put a link to that episode in the description. The stew was actually very good. And I got that from this John Wynn's Comfort Classic Foods. I found this at the Tractor Supply here in town. So, the stew was definitely amazing. The dessert, questionable. Edible, but very questionable. It's not really a pudding. It's more of a custard in terms of texture. But, I don't know. Go ahead and feel free to give it a shot, or... well, that's all I can really say. Alright, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for your patience. Remember to click it, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell icon. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next project.